and welcome to Forgotten Frights. I'm Josh. I'm sitting here with Adam.
How's it going?
Today on the podcast, we are reviewing the 1968 horror film, The Witchfinder General, starring Vincent Price, Ian Ogilvy, Rupert Davies, and Hilary Heath. Here is the trailer.
With the tranquility of rural England shattered by civil war, evil was spawned at a time of strife in the land.
Take him, Stern. Look for the devil's marks upon him.
Right. Help us, you two.
Pounding the innocent in violence and terror, this evil man showed no mercy in the pursuit and interrogation of his victims. He was called the Witchfinder General. And amidst the horror of the witch hunt, a story of tender young love.
Didn't your uncle just say you must have it to bed?
He did.
Isn't he a wise man?
He is.
But even their innocence is cruelly corrupted by the vile touch of the Witchfinder General.
My motive in coming here was to find the truth.
Vincent Price is the Witchfinder General. Lust and greed were his only god.
The money from the magistrate. 9 guineas in silver.
Good. Now we can leave.
Ian Ogilvy as Richard Marshall. He stood alone against the forces of devilish destruction.
To thy sight, O Lord, that I hereby swear, I shall not rest from the pursuit of his murderers, till they stand before thee, ready to answer to thee mercy.
Rupert Davies as John Lowe.
Master, welcome.
Patrick Wymart as Oliver Cromwell.
Amongst the most pleasurable aspects of victory, gentlemen, is the opportunity it affords to reward valor.
It ranks almost with good food.
And Wilfred Bramble.
And what line of business might be in?
God's business. Witch finding.
Witch finding. Oh, that's nice. That's very nice.
And introducing Hilary Dwyer as Sarah. Filmed in authentic detail and photographed with piercing realism against the actual background of peaceful villages and quiet countryside. Never has England looked so beautiful, yet been so violent.
I'm your man friend. John Stern, they call me.
Man's inhumanity to man portrayed on the screen so vividly that you flinch. So real that you too will fear the Witchfinder General. Be the first to see it. Be the first to talk about it. The Witchfinder General.
Okay, so there was a trailer. Before we dig into the review, Adam, how's it going?
It's going good.
Good.
I'm enjoying this nice Saturday morning, and I know it's cold and rainy right now, but we're supposed to be getting some sunshine rays and all that good stuff next week. So
I was coming up your driveway, and all I could think is this looks like scenery from The Witchfinder General.
yeah, I guess
It's like, old dead trees and what's the word? Sadness and despair.
yeah.
Yeah. Haunting despair.
My whoremaster neighbor who
Yes.
where screaming is emanating from his shed nonstop.
With the way this goes, I figured we could just jump right into the movie and we can start breaking it down from the beginning. For anybody listening at home, we're just going to break this down into 3 parts. We're going to walk through the movie. We're going to do a trivia section to hopefully give a little additional background for the movie. And then just do our closing thoughts. So, I have a full breakdown if you want me to start going through it.
Please do.
I have so much to say about this movie, and it's no, I'll just wait till the end. It's fine. The film opens with a hanging.
Yes, a long lead up to a hanging.
It's so. Why don't we just talk about our feelings about the film first?
If I were to say to you, what's the one word that you could describe this movie? Like, what's the first word that comes to your mind?
Futile. Futility.
Yes. I scream it.
Screaming.
There is so much female screaming in this movie, and it's unnerving.
There is so much hostility toward females in this movie. It seems to be. I was watching the movie last night, and I'm like, I don't even know that I want to talk about this movie because you have, and definitely violence against women, but you have people just being brutalized in ways that are, I don't even know. Almost, the word fetish comes to mind. It just seems really violent, and I don't know. The director was going for that.
Do you know who the director was?
Michael Reeves.
And
this was his third film, I believe.
I would like to think that Michael Reeves was sitting at home one day and he found a book of torture. And he said, oh, well, these would be kind of cool on film. So I think he built this movie around that. Now, I'm being jokey, of course, because I know there's a story behind it, but it feels like they really went out of their way to. There's parts of this movie that remind me of like Italian giallo movies, where they're very long shots.
Yeah.
Like, you want to talk about parts of the movie?
Let's talk about parts of the movie. Before we do that, because my original intention is to just break this movie down in steps, and we can do that. That's fine. I just kind of want to get into talking about, because I don't want listeners to think like I'm not okay with this movie. It was upsetting, and then when I hit the climax, it was I just didn't. I had more questions than answers, and I felt like there was just a lot of hate in this movie toward a lot of different people.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry. What did you just say? You just said.
For instance, I was just talking
about parts of the movie.
Like
Go ahead.
The long, unending torture. The scene where they're running the priests around the table.
Yes.
I genuinely worried about that man. He must have been in his late 50s, early 60s. He looked very tired.
Yeah.
And I get it. It's movies, but why? There were so many shots where they're just like pricking people in the back, and so much.
That's what I was going to say is the table running, but also the stabbing in the back. Mm-hmm. Before we keep going, the movie is about a Witchfinder General. They end up calling him the Witchfinder General. It's Vincent Price, and he's got his assistant,
John Stern.
And they pretty much travel around, and they get paid by magistrates to weed out witches. And then they punish them, torture them, and kill them through hangings and burnings.
Witches in heavy quotes.
Yes, witches. They're not actually witches. So they're like malevolent characters. They're really not. They're out for the worst. And they have all of the worst aspects of humanity within them. And that's something I want to talk about as well, because the film deals a lot with sin, but we can get to that. But anyway, we have a young soldier who is it is a Roundhead who is in service of Oliver Cromwell against the Royalists during one of the English Civil Wars. And so he has this, he's in love with a woman named Sarah, who is the niece of a village priest. Vincent Price shows up and on behalf of somebody from the village who accuses the priest of witchcraft.
Yeah,
right?
There were a group of folks waiting for Matthew Hopkins, the Witchfinder General, and the soldier sees them on his way to join his infantry, and they said, "Yeah, we're waiting for Matthew Hopkins," and John Stern and Matthew Hopkins are on their way to the village.
And this is after we've seen already a really violent hanging in the beginning of the film, where they drag an elderly woman up a hill. I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh, but it's so violent and so horrible. They drag this woman up a hill and then they hang her, and then it just kind of does a John Hughes freeze frame on Vincent Price, who's on the other side of the hill, just watching. And then
kind of a who, me?
Yeah, absolutely. He's like, I'm a little stinker over here, and I did this. We then meet the soldier, Richard Marshall, he goes and visits his wife to be and the priest after he leaves the Witchfinder, and his assistant show up and they just start brutalizing the community.
Yeah.
They run the guy around, they run the priest around a table after stabbing him in the back looking for witches marks. That's violent and horrible to watch because they don't shy away from anything. They just show everything.
Yep.
And then
Sarah is by the pond, kind of just enjoying the day, and somebody from the village runs and tells her that her uncle?
Yeah, because it's she's his niece.
Yeah, and so informs her that he's being tortured, and she runs towards the village. Just kind of, I don't know what she thinks she's going to do, but she's
It then, because the movie's horrible,
it's so grim.
And grim, she then offers herself to Vincent Price to spare the priest, which she does. And
she holds up her end of the bargain.
Yes, and Vincent Price shows up, and so we have this thing with this thing with like sin, and it's all I could think about while I was watching it is that the Witchfinder General, Matthew Hopkins, and then Stern, right?
Yes,
they both kind of like epitomize the sins, right? So you have like gluttony, and he's like a drunk, Stern is. And you have greed, right? Because they're murdering these witches and just getting money and moving around, and that's how they make their income. And I guess sloth and all that you could throw in on Stern's side. It's kind of because it's so horrible and it's so grim. And all I can think is how horrible it is and so grim. It's having these characters embody these sins. It's just making it all the more grimmer,
with a lot of movies, a lot of things are set up early where you feel like, okay, but they're going to get theirs.
Yeah.
And they assuredly do. But so many things are left to where you feel, well, shit. I mean, it's not satisfying for the heroes at all. Like so many bad things happen, and I'll tell you this: it's a very I didn't think about the sin aspect. I just thought that they were terrible hypocrites. Like,
right.
Obviously.
Oh, and I think that's there. That's for sure.
For sure. But
the hypocrisy of their
but
motivations.
Them embodying the sins, I didn't even think about that.
I think and I don't know, because I think that it would take more intelligence than this movie has to offer. And I'll get to some of my final thoughts at the end, just kind of what I think overall about the creative forces behind this film. But in getting through the plot of the film, continuing on,
more of the same.
More of the same. The town is brutalized. The priest is hanged, and along with some other people.
The priest is hanged after spending a long time in a prison cell being brutalized.
Oh yeah.
Along with other village members.
Yeah, there's there's a woman in there who's being choked and smacked, and
she just screams and screams.
And so Richard, who is our protagonist, our hero, he shows up. After some time, he learns that this the village where Sarah lives has been more or less interrogated by the Witchfinder General, and he arrives. She's just been like that. She's literally been beaten. God, it's just awful. He then he marries her there in the kind of like busted up
in the ruins of the
temple,
monastery.
But the monastery. Yeah. He marries her there, and he also makes a vow that he will kill the Witchfinder General and his assistant if it's the last thing he does.
Yes, he even kind of does a imbuing the sword with the power of the Lord. Yes.
He then goes off. He finds Stern, the Witchfinder General's assistant, in a tavern. They have a fight. The Stern gets away after Richard is comically hit on top of the head with like a stick.
Yeah, the bartender.
Yeah, bartender kind of like comes over like it's a Western film.
Then the bartender helps him up.
Yeah, and then he's like, "I'm taking you to the magistrate." He follows. The other thing is that Richard is a part of the Roundheads. So he may be charged with desertion if he continues to search for the Witchfinder General, and that could result in his own death. But he doesn't really care because he's made a vow. So he's got a few friends in the military with him.
We should backtrack just a little bit.
Yeah.
There was a scene in the beginning where the commanding officer and Richard's in his under his regimen, and the commanding officer almost gets shot, but Richard takes the assailant out with his pistol, and the commanding officer is thankful that Richard saved him, and that kind of comes into play as far as him giving Richard a little bit more leeway in his quest.
Yes, because he gets he gets kind of confronted by him at some point, and he says, well, you did, it would be terrible. It would be terrible if I punished you, even though you saved my life. That sort of thing.
Yes.
He ends up tracking the Witchfinder General to another town where Sarah is. I think she's moved to this town. I'm not sure what.
So Richard gave Sarah money after Richard had come to the town and everything was in ruins. Sarah, obviously was very frightened, very upset. Richard gave her money and said, go to a town. I think he, said a specific town, but gave her money and said, wait for me there. And Sarah just happens to go to a town where Matthew Hopkins and John Stern are headed to next.
Yeah. And I guess, it was so long ago. There was like 3 towns, So I was like, which one are you going to? It's like, I'm going down the road. Yeah. So there's a moment too, somewhere in there where Richard is pursuing them down the road, and they the Witchfinder General and Stern, they kind of go into the woods to hide from him, and they start making this plan, and it doesn't really show like them being that cunning or that crafty, because they're like, oh, what we should do is kill him before he can kill us. And so, okay, that's like their plan. Cut to, they're in this like other town, and they come up with the same plan.
Yep.
It's like, it hasn't changed. They're like, oh, what we should do is kill him before he can kill us. And it's like, you guys still haven't thought that this guy is pursuing you? Maybe, come up with a better idea.
You talked about this movie being feudal.
Yes.
And, you're absolutely right. We got to kill him before he kills us. They go to the town. Richard's in the town with Sarah. Richard's like, I'm going to kill these sons of bitches.
Yes.
And then they just come up to the room and disarm them.
Yeah.
And it's just like, literally nothing happened. You keep expecting, like this guy is so full of vengeance where he wants to get his revenge. And it's like, I have a sword and you have a gun. So, yep, I guess we're caught again.
Yeah, it doesn't, and we'll get to it after, or toward the end, but, just kind of how the movie's laid out and like how things end up, because there is definitely that theme of futility in there, but it doesn't. We'll get to it, but he gets disarmed in the town, and this is after a scene in which Vincent Price has a girl strung up on a ladder. I can't even explain this contraption. He's got some kind of like I don't even know what that would be. I want to say like monastic totem, but that's not right. It's like a big piece of wood in a town square. And then there is a woman who is tied to a ladder, the very top of a ladder, which is positioned against this totem thing. So she's high up in the air at the top of the ladder, tied to it. there are 2 ropes on either side that people are pulling.
Yeah.
And then right in front of her is a huge bonfire pit. Now they start kind of providing slack on the rope. So the ladder is put forward into the flames. And then you just watch her catch on fire and die.
This goes back to the director potentially reading a book of torture.
Yes.
And
You watch the whole thing.
Yep. And that's where there were parts of this movie where I felt like if it was done differently,
Mhm.
you'd have real anger towards the villains. And if there would have been some payoff,
Mm-hmm.
it would have been warranted in a way where it's like, okay, you're building these evil individuals. Now they're going to get their comeuppance.
Yes.
The comeuppance is
It's not.
brutal
And we can,
and horrible
because
as everything else.
right from this point onward, the Witchfinder General takes Richard and Sarah, and Cern is with him. They go up to like an old castle or an old like fortified tower. They're taken down into the dungeon, and then they're just tortured there.
For a long time.
For a long time. Richard's friends show up, and they kind of help by distracting somewhat, but Richard just ends up getting free, and he immediately pops out Cern's eye with his boot heel.
Yep.
Just more of that kind of like,
He was wearing stiletto boots the whole time.
that's it, you didn't notice,
Yep.
but every time you walked, it was like,
Yep.
oh, it wasn't even a normal sound. It was like click, 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 click.
Yep.
So then he grabs an axe and just starts. He just starts.
And then off scene or off screen, he kills him with an axe. Just kidding. He bludgeons him over and over. Again.
There's so much blood everywhere. And like that guy who got shot, the assassin. Remember the assassin who's
when
like,
they're coming down the stairs?
Yes, and he's like, aha, I'm going to get you.
Another example of,
Vincent Price draws a gun, shoots the guy in the stomach, and there's blood everywhere.
You watch him bleed out for
Forever.
at least 45 seconds.
It's so long. And then, and then it kind of like cuts back and forth between Richard's friends that are coming down into the dungeon and Richard, who's just, I can only describe it as beating Vincent Price with an axe.
With an axe, yeah.
And over and over again.
Yeah.
And then
one of his friends shoots Matthew Hopkins to end it because the soldier who shoots him is so aghast at what he's seeing. And then Richard, he lashes out in anger at his compadre that shot Matthew Hopkins, saying something to the effect of, "You took it away from me."
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That is so dark.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he just wanted to keep murdering him with that axe for eternity.
I guess. Just out of pure hate.
I will say the very end of the movie, it's not a saving grace because this movie is deplorable. But Sarah screaming and screaming and screaming, and it's a freeze frame of her face. It's a good way to end this movie because, I mean, maybe I should say this in the final thoughts, but essentially, there is no happy ending here.
No,
it is a terrible. It's just a terrible situation.
Yeah,
that's an understatement, but it's a bad deal.
It really is. And then the movie ends as her screams echo through the halls of the dungeon, and we are treated to just different aspects and different angles of the dungeon and empty hallways and staircases that we were not privy to before, but now are just highlighting her screams.
No, and a nice piano piece.
And yeah, and then the music is very like polite. And that's it. That's the Witchfinder General. That's the film. And I think with that, we are going to go to our next segment. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll come back for a little bit of trivia. So I guess stay tuned. welcome back to Forgotten Frights. I'm Josh. I'm sitting here with Adam.
Hey.
And we are now going to play a true or false trivia game about Witchfinder General. Adam, are you ready?
I'm ready.
True or false? Question 1. Donald Pleasance was considered for the role of the Witchfinder General.
I'm going to say true.
True. It is true. Now, how true, I'm not sure because I didn't do a whole lot of deep research, but it's certainly what I think IMDb told me. It says director Michael Reeves wanted Donald Pleasance to play Matthew Hopkins, but American International Pictures, the distributor and co-financier of the film, insisted that Vincent Price play the title character, and Reeves grudgingly accepted. This says heavily rewriting the script to better fit Price's persona. And then Reeves, upon first meeting Price for the first time, Reeves told him, "I didn't want you, and I still don't want you, but I'm stuck with you." So he really wanted somebody else.
He said that to Vincent Price?
Yeah, there's a whole contention. There's a whole... in fact, that's one of the questions, but you'll know it when we get to it.
I will say that I think that Vincent Price was poorly cast in this movie.
Yeah.
I'm a huge mark for Vincent Price.
We can get to that. We can get to that for sure.
All right.
Question 2. The film was given an Edgar Allan Poe title, The Conqueror Worm, to tie it to earlier Roger Corman films in the series of Poe films he had directed.
I'll say true.
True, it is. So it was released as the Conqueror Worm in the U.S. Now, last night when I was looking for this film, I checked 2 sources, one of which was Pluto TV, and the other one was just on YouTube. The YouTube cut did not have the Conqueror Worm on it, but the Pluto TV said the Conqueror Worm to start. So it just must be the U.S. cut. And the film was given the title of a poem by Edgar Allan Poe. This says right here, brief prologue and epilogue narrations by Price taken from Poe's poem were added to justify the new title. So, like the Haunted Palace, it's the same thing. He's just reading a Poe, even though it's closer to a Lovecraft story. He's reading an Edgar Allan Poe poem just because they had to tie it somehow to.
I'm sure people at the time were like, "Yeah, close enough." I was.
I felt that way after watching it. Vincent Price question 3. Vincent Price and actress Hilary Heath appeared in multiple films together.
Hilary Heath played Sarah?
Correct.
I'm going to say true.
Also true. This is the first of 3 films to star Vincent Price and Hilary Heath. I wanted to include them. This one, for this reason, is that they would go on to appear together again in The Oblong Box, 1969, and Cry of the Banshee, 1970, which are 2 films I think we should definitely review.
I've seen both of those movies, but I could not tell you anything about either of those movies.
And I've read The Oblong Box not that long ago. And they Cry of the Banshee, I don't. I assume there's a banshee, and there's probably some cry.
Hopefully not as much screaming.
This says, in this film, she played his victim and would later play his wife and daughter, respectively, in the other 2 films.
Yeah, I mean,
probably
only like a 35-year
difference. Question 4. I'll get the hang of this. Don't worry. Michael Reeves and Vincent Price, Michael Reeves being the director, got along famously on the set of the film. True or false? We already tackled this.
I'm going to say false.
Okay, so there was a very contentious relationship, I think, because Michael Reeves did not want Vincent Price to begin with. Asked all sorts of absurd things from the actor. Maybe not absurd, but certainly dangerous. I think at one point wanted Vincent Price to fire a pistol when he shoots that the guy coming out of the woods who's tailing him on his horse. Vincent Price said, "You want me to shoot this pistol between the horse's ears, like the horse is going to flip out?" Michael Reeves said yes. He fired the gun. Vincent Price was thrown off the horse and was very, though apparently unharmed, was really angry about it.
Yeah.
When Vincent Price showed up for the film, Michael Reeves didn't even meet him at the airport. It was like an assistant that showed up, and Vincent Price apparently said something like, "Take me to your young genius director," and then that's when Michael Reeves was like, "I didn't want you." So they just didn't like each other.
I know it has nothing to do with anything, but Michael Reeves and someone getting thrown off a horse. That's
oh no,
woof.
Oh, that's
all that
in bad taste.
First thing that popped in my brain. I'm sorry.
In bad taste. But still applicable.
Yes.
Okay. So that's what I got for you. I think you got 4 out of 4, Adam.
Oh, excellent.
I think this is well, we had a couple of separate podcasts before this trying something new, and I don't know. I guess maybe you've done pretty well on the previous ones. I don't recall.
I guess we'd have to go back and do the stats, but yeah.
Yeah. I also went back and looked, and we reviewed a lot of good movies that we're gonna have to somehow get on this podcast.
Yeah.
Like Black Sabbath,
sure,
The Haunted Palace, The Last Man on Earth.
Crack in the World.
We can avoid that. All right. We are going to take another quick break. We're just going to come back with our final thoughts, and then we're good to go. I don't know how to finish that, but that's what we're doing. So let's take a break.
It'll come in good time.
Yeah, I'm rusty, so we got to get back into do this often. All right, we'll be back. All right, welcome back to Forgotten Frights. I am Josh. I'm sitting here with Adam.
Hey.
And in this last segment, we're just going to talk about the film. Give our final summation, our final thoughts. I don't think we necessarily have to do a recommend, or you know what I mean. Like in this particular segment, whether we need to say, does this film deserve to be remembered or forgotten? I think this is just kind of, we can sum it up if that's something we want to do.
I think it's everybody's, it's subjective for sure.
Yeah.
Every movie's going to, have its fans and its folks that don't like it. I'll start.
Go ahead.
Just a couple of points. I feel like, and I know it's a product of its time, but the character of Sarah is extremely undersold in this movie. Even the vengeance that, who's the fella on the horse? By the way,
Richard.
The horse riding is maybe the saving grace of this.
Oh yeah. We should definitely talk about the cinematography.
That actor, he was full gallop.
Yeah,
it was. I thought it was exciting to watch. It was very good horsemanship on the character of Richard's part. But Sarah is brutalized throughout this movie, and I feel like it's more about Richard's vengeance towards the Witchfinder General. At the very end, as I was talking about this earlier, the final scene is her screaming in the freeze frame. It's a great way to end this movie because not only is she brutalized and victimized, but she's not heard at all.
Yeah.
It's just, she's this pawn in everything that's going on around her.
Yeah.
And, my wife and I watched this movie, and after it ended, she said, "So they lived happily ever after."
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a horrifying movie. I will say, the character of John Stern, I don't know the actor's name.
Let me see if I have it. It's taking a look. Rupert Davies, is that right?
Could be.
I think it's Rupert Davies because when I looked at the image, not unless he played like the priest, but I think that's the only one I had. Ian Ogilvy was the Richard, and Hilary Heath was Sarah. And we know who Vincent Price was.
Sure. Whatever. The character John Stern, I thought was a real sinister son of a bitch.
Yes.
And again, in a different movie, I would have liked this character because he was a heel in every way. I didn't like him. I felt like his acting performance made me believe that he was that nasty, terrible human being. I love Vincent Price to death, but I feel like he was miscast in this movie. I feel like in almost every other Vincent Price movie, there's something to like about the character.
Yeah.
And in this movie, he was just...
It would have benefited from a hammy Vincent Price performance if he was going to be, in it. And I think, like, as interesting, I guess, after the movie was released, he said something like akin to like, this is like one of my best performances of all time, which because it's understated, maybe, because he's less hammy. I didn't see that. I saw somebody who like seemed frustrated on the set of a movie directed by someone he did not like. And if it was understated, it wasn't, I think I saw reviewers call it like a menacing performance, and it just didn't, he just seemed kind of, it was just evil for evil's sake. And that's not a character.
Right.
That's, one of the things I wrote down was that it's too violent. And I don't, I'm not going to shy away from like, excessive violence, when it can be played well. There's a film called Psycho Goreman that is really just gory and over the top, like Turbo Kid, those like 80s throwbacks where they just use violence to kind of to shed a light on how violent the 80s, like how violent 80s movies were in retrospect. And there's like a purpose to that. Like there's a reason why that violence is used. Here, it's a crutch for narrative. They're lacking in story, it seems like, so they would just show everything in like as grotesquely as possible. The characters fundamentally are archetypes. Sarah isn't really anything. Tonally, the film seems to want to be this like revenge film with a noble knight who's going to go save his princess from the clutches of an evil monster like Vincent Price. And yet, like you said, we don't get that payoff. We get someone screaming in terror. We get the futility of, I guess, witch trials. and then you're just kind of left like, oh, okay, I just watched that and I don't know what I'm supposed to take away from that necessarily. Outside of that, like violence happens a lot.
Yeah, and nothing. I mean, again, I get that it's it's set in a time where people aren't as educated, but the fact that these villages just go into this like sheep, where it's oh, here comes Matthew Hopkins, let's burn some witches. It just, I feel like I don't know if you'd call it cult of personality, because I don't feel like Vincent Price had much of a personality.
No.
Everybody's just accepting of what's happening, and nothing's really explained. And, there isn't like any, underhanded things where Hopkins and Stern have to do things under the cover of night. It's just full daylight. Yep. We're going to do these things. The villagers kind of all join in because they don't want to be part of the victim, half of things. And it's just, there's never, I don't feel like there's ever a sense of hope. There's no hope in this movie.
One of the things I wrote was that in the pursuit of reality, they forgot levity. And so there are and I think you're touching on something really important too, which is that Vincent Price is not a charismatic figure. So it's hard to track why it is, people are kind of like, oh yeah, let's let this guy do whatever. And, why he can perpetuate the violence that he can with just by showing up and going, you called,
Yeah.
And, just a couple of other things is like the film was made longer through violence. It felt like an extremely long film, but it's just because of prolonged scenes of torture, which is not fun to watch. I will never come around to loving what do they call it? Like torture porn films, where it's just people being brutalized. We use that word quite a bit, but just people being tortured and dismembered, and then using that as narrative thrust doesn't make any sense to me.
It's akin to a 90s Skinamax movie where it's poorly acted scenes with long scenes of simulated sex.
Yeah.
Where you're kind of just sitting through that.
And I think that's like that the torture porn moniker comes from, right? Because it's like, oh yeah, we have a thinly veiled story, and then you just get these long scenes where people are being like, you know, they're amputated, whatever. Just yeah. So you know, maybe if should this movie be forgotten? If we were gonna go that far, I had a hard time watching this movie, and it was not a fun watch. And I was really excited to watch it because I was excited to get back into podcasting. And
this was your pick.
And this was my pick.
Not to point fingers.
I thought it was going to be something more magical.
Vincent Price.
Black magic.
Yep.
You know, it turns out the other film we did is more like that.
Yep.
And not this film, which this was just a drag. And it's got a following. It's got a cult following. It's like but I don't.
This is my third all-time viewing, and I watched this movie when I was younger, and I don't think it really hit me.
Yeah.
And upon this, I was telling you when we talked about the movies we're going to watch, and I remember just the feeling of the movie, and I think I said to you, Vincent Price plays a pretty terrible human being, but I was not prepared for this viewing.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to say that I don't have to review this movie in any way.
I completely agree. The only thing I will say before we close out is this movie might be good if you were to say, like, cast it on the outside of your house from a projector during Halloween, like have that playing
for an adult party.
Yeah. Don't do it for kids. Do it like it's a backdrop to something, because it's such a violent, like the scenes you see in there are so awful and terrible. It could be something where it's like, oh, it'd be like playing the Texas Chainsaw Massacre or something. And it's like, oh yeah, you're at like a spooky, adult costume party and you guys are all hanging out and here's this terrible film, you know, this awful thing. But, and I point that out because that's the only context this film might work, is in this very like, maybe if you want to like just gross people out, you can play this thing. But even that's probably too far.
Yeah, I mean, again, if this movie was not starring Vincent Price, it may not even hit the same way as far as being the way I feel about it. I guess what I'm trying to say is, with Vincent Price attached, I feel like I was expecting something different.
Yeah,
and if it were just cast with unknown actors, it could be racked up there to, oh wow, this independent company was trying to make this pretty harsh movie, and maybe there's more understanding there. But with Vincent Price attached, I just feel like, it didn't work. It didn't work.
I had like traumatic feelings after watching that. But guys, listeners, if this is the final episode, the Witchfinder General did it. Podcast over. Thanks for listening to the podcast. That's all I got. Adam, you got anything?
No, let's not watch this movie again.
Yes, we will not be reviewing this film again. I'm always hard pressed to come up with like a closing. It's like, see you next time, or stay tuned is cliche.
Good fright, good night.
Oh, did you just come up with that?
I did.
Good fright and good night.